community involvement, including athletics. Italians, as you know, are extremely family-oriented. As the children became interested and participated in sports, the SMS members and their families also got involved. Many of the children or relatives of SMS members became outstanding high school athletes, including 6 members of the inaugural class and 16 subsequent members of the Mynderse Hall of Fame, including 3 this evening. So following the exploits of their children provided sufficient reason for the SMS members to get involved in athletics, both at Mynderse and at St. Pat's. However, as with every organization, a reason is not always enough. What is needed is a leader, and that's why we are here tonight. The SMS found its leader in Angelo Suffredini. If it had anything to do with sports, Suff was involved. In 1958, he and his committee organized the first SMS sports banquet. In 1961, they started an award for the outstanding male athlete at Mynderse. First recipient was Hall of Fame member Leslie Robinson. In 1965, when committee member Ali Biattini passed away, the committee renamed the award the Aldo Ali Biattini Outstanding Athlete Award. Beginning in 1972, when Title IX was enacted, the SMS also added an award for the Outstanding Female Athlete at Mynderse as well. Those awards continue to be given to this date. Now they are given at the annual Athletic Awards recognition ceremony. Beginning in 1960s, the SMS, largely through Suff's influence, began hosting dinners, fundraising dinners, end-of-the-year banquets for any Mynderse team that needed a venue to host their event. And I was told to throw in a plug. There's one coming up Thursday from 4:30 to 7:30 to benefit the programs at the middle school, so if you're free, stop up. In addition, for the past 50 years, the SMS has been a financial resource to the Mynderse Athletic Department, largely through the relationship formed between Suff and Mynderse AD Deco Paradise and subsequent ADs. Whenever there was an expense that wasn't covered in the athletic budget, the ADs would come to Suff. Whether it was a deserving athlete who wanted to attend a summer camp but didn't have the money, if a team needed an extra set of practice jerseys, whatever the need, Suff would come to the SMS, and the SMS rarely, if ever, refused. The members of the SMS are deeply honored to receive this recognition here tonight, and we look forward to continue to be a resource to the athletes at Mynderse Academy in the future. We do, however, along with the past and present athletes at Mynderse, owe a special debt of gratitude to Angelo Suffredini. Suff, without your leadership, these athletes would not have reaped the benefits of your hard work for the past 60 years. And we would not be being honored here tonight. To you and all of the men and women who assisted you in supporting the athletes at Mynderse, thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts.
We don't have anything. Where's the plaque? Huh? Oh, the crystal. You want to go down and take it with Suff? He's going to go down and take it with Seth. Going to take it with Seth. Me too. Rod was very appreciative that Suff was here because he said there's no question he'd better off taking it with Suff than he is with him. So, now it's my pleasure to begin the individual inductees and introduce their presenters. The first presenter is Mr. David Ferrara to introduce Mr. Stephen Avaduty.
I know I'm on borrowed time. If you're the size that I am and you have two brothers the size that I have, you know I better make it quick and follow the rules. Mynderse Academy Nominating Committee, inductees, ladies and gentlemen, and especially two of the people that I know I benefited from, Suff and John Panucci. It's a pleasure to be here to introduce Steve. But before I do, I think just one other comment needs to be made. I was a classmate, along with Steve, with Joanne, and I want to tell you something. Joanne could have played on any team in any school district and probably outcompeted most of the men. So by any means, she was one of our stellar athletes. And I also want to thank Joanne for her 4 years in the Navy for that service. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Stephen J. Avaduty, who I've had the great pleasure of knowing since kindergarten, back when St. Pat's had that one-room schoolhouse. We're also very fortunate tonight to have his lovely mother, Velma, with us, his sister, Erica, and of course his beautiful wife, Lynn, who I've also had the pleasure of knowing for a very, very long time. Steve played basketball for Coach Nick Nettie, and although at St. Pat's and basketball might not have been Steve's strongest sport, it definitely laid the foundation for the athlete that he soon would become. After St. Pat's, Steve went to Mynderse, of course, where he not only excelled athletically, but academically as well. Again, I benefited from that. Steve, as you know from the materials on display in the lobby when you came in this evening, played football for 4 years under Coach Davis and Coach Schiller, as well as 4 years of lacrosse under the great Coach Henry. Steve, like his brother Joe before him, was one of the pioneers in Mynderse lacrosse. At the time, Steve gave up the basketball and took the lacrosse stick. Lacrosse was relatively unknown here in upstate New York. Steve's exceptional athleticism earned him 3 block letters in both sports, where he excelled in lacrosse as a midi and an attack, and carried the lion's share of the ball for the Blue Devils during our years in high school. Steve, of course, is a member of the 1970 undefeated Blue Devil team and was inducted in last year's class. Steve was named first team All-Finger Lakes for lacrosse his senior year, and if my memory serves me right, second all-team for football. Now, Steve had one main task in high school. In addition to all his accomplishments, there was 3 people he had to keep out of jail: Jim Rickey, Mike Riccione, and yours truly. And fortunately, he did a pretty good job at that as well. After graduating from Mynderse, Steve went on to Clarkson University, where he earned his degree in civil engineering, making the dean's list, I think, every year. Steve played lacrosse for 4 years, set numerous scoring records, and was captain of the team his senior year. Some 40 years later, Steve is still ranked 13 on Clarkson's all-time scoring list. Not too shabby for a slow white kid from Seneca Falls. After graduation, Steve continued to carry the stick with honor as he played men's lacrosse on various teams, competing in various tournaments throughout New York State. The 2 teams in particular, one called the Cloud Splitters to this day, and the Crabmen. I'll leave it to you to figure out where those names fit into this. I'm not sure. Steve also had the pleasure of competing with his son Reed, which of course was a very special experience for both Avaduties. Steve is also and has been continuously instrumental in helping various youth programs in the Albany area start lacrosse as a coach and a referee. And I know from my personal experience following him through junior league football, St. Pat's basketball, and high school, those kids he worked with were very fortunate to have someone with his athleticism, integrity, and good nature working very closely with them as they developed their lacrosse skills. More importantly, I can assure you, Steve probably taught them a few life lessons along the way, which is invaluable, of course, to those kids that especially are in need for that today. Steve was the ultimate teammate that anyone would have ever wanted on their team. Loyal to a fault, dedicated, gave it 120% all the time. Like so many inductees before him, Steve is the quintessential gentleman, husband, father, now a grandfather, by the way. As I've said, I've known Steve for the better part of 60 years, consider him one of the best friends anyone could ever have, never asking why, but only what can I do to help when someone's in need. From my perspective, Steve represents the type of person why Seneca Falls is such a unique and special place to have grown up. I've only had one disagreement with Steve in the 60 years I've known him. It's the Clyde football game, 1972. I'm calling the defense at the time, 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. We're up by 3. Call the huddle. I yell out, break but don't bend. Steve looks at me and says, I think you got that backwards, Dave. It's the only disagreement I can remember in 60 years. I have my great pleasure to introduce to you 2018 inductee Steve Avaduty. No doubt I'll never be holding one.
Well, I don't know if there's anything left to say. Thank you, David. David's a great friend, been friends forever, as he said, and it's a perfect example of what great friendship is enhanced by everlasting memories of high school sports and beyond. I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for inducting me into the Mynderse Academy Hall of Fame. It's truly a great honor. I'd like to congratulate the rest of the inductees for the 2018 class, including the 94 basketball team. I'd like to thank my parents for all their support throughout the years, my wife Lynn for her continued support, and my 3 children, Lee, Lane, and Reed, for providing me the opportunity to follow them through their sports careers, youth, high school, and college. As kids playing sports, we all dream of making it to the big leagues, and as we get older, reality sets in and we realize it's not in the cards for most of us. But we continue to play the games we love because of the competition, the friendships, and the learning experiences from hard work, following directions, and dealing with personalities of all different kinds, some we may not like. And I was fortunate enough to play for 2 very successful and passionate coaches, George Davis in football and Al Henry in lacrosse. Their enthusiasm and passion was very contagious. I always wanted to play football in college, but unfortunately size was not on my side. But lacrosse was a sport back in the day where size didn't matter. And I was able to extend my playing days into college. When my playing days were over, when my college days were over, I thought my playing days were over as well. And I still had a desire to be part of the game that I'd come to love and be passionate about. So I got involved in coaching youth lacrosse, which was in its infancy. And as years passed and I had kids of my own, I got involved in youth programs around me. I sat on the board of a U.S. lacrosse chapter, as well as organizing a local boys and girls K-8 lacrosse program. And I had the good fortune of working with 2 Mynderse Academy sports alums, Ron Sandroni and Steve Maloney, to get the program started and continues it to this day. It was a very rewarding experience. And I realized why guys like Suff and Nick Nettie and Joe Barbie, who was my Pop Warner coach, gave their time freely and willingly to be part of youth sports. Sports has been an important part of my life, from the thrill and excitement of competing at various levels, the proud moments of watching my own kids' success in their own sports arenas. Most importantly, the satisfaction of giving back to my community through youth programs, and for that I'm forever grateful. And now this award is the culmination of it. Thank you very much.
We already did. Yeah. Get him his plaque and get him the hell out of here. Here. Age is a tough thing to deal with. To introduce our next member and inductee, I'd like to ask Hall of Fame member Kirk Ward to come forward.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking the Hall of Fame committee and the Carasolo family for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. Also, congratulations to all of tonight's inductees. In 1983, Ed Carasolo was a first-year varsity wrestler as an 8th grader, and I was a first-year varsity coach. Ed made our team that year on the strong recommendation of the previous coach, new Hall of Famer Mr. Dan Carraher. I don't remember the whole conversation that we had, but the message was loud and clear. You're going to want this guy on your team, and he was right. Ed Carasolo was a terrific 3-sport athlete. He made major contributions to the football, wrestling, and lacrosse teams. And when I think about Ed as an athlete, I think about checking all the boxes, because this guy had it all: speed, quickness, agility, et cetera, et cetera. He was the type of athlete that would have been good, if not great, at any sport he played. Luckily for me, he chose 2 of the sports that I was involved with, football and wrestling. At the end of Ed's 5-year career in wrestling, he had amassed 104 career wins and 2 sectional titles, and in his senior year was named Most Outstanding Wrestler of the sectional tournament. In his final 2 seasons, Ed had a record of 58 wins and 5 losses. And 30 years after the fact, he still holds 2 Mynderse Academy wrestling records today. And most importantly to me, Ed had firmly laid the foundation for years to come for other Mynderse Academy wrestlers. The values and traits that helped Ed Carasolo to so much success at Mynderse Academy have also served him well in life: hard work, a supportive family, and a strong will to succeed have also led him to a college degree, a successful college lacrosse career, and to a long and decorated military career in the United States Army. I know of no one that deserves this recognition tonight more than Ed Carasolo. With that being said, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce the newest member of the Mynderse Academy Athletic Hall of Fame, Ed Carasolo.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate the introduction and kind words. For starters, it's good to be home again and see everybody. It's been a long time. We don't get home very often, so it's nice to see some familiar faces. In the spirit of keeping this short, I just want to thank a few people. Many coaches. Many thanks to my coaches throughout my past. Starting off with my father, who was my very first coach and continued to be my coach to this day. To Uncle Kurtz. As it goes without saying, my very first junior league football coach who allowed me to play football before the legal age. Um, no surprise there. To my high school coaches, Coach Ward, big impact on my life, and Coach Al Henry. Many thanks to my mother, who spent countless hours in gymnasiums on Saturdays. And especially many thanks to my wife, Tracy, who really afforded our kids the same opportunities that I had. So thank you, Tracy. Lastly, just thank you to the committee for this great honor. I do appreciate it. Again, it's good to be home and see everybody, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your night. Thank you.
To introduce our next inductee, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Joe Caraher.
Good evening. First, I would like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for giving me the opportunity to speak on my brother Dan's behalf. I would like to congratulate all of tonight's inductees. It's an amazing honor to be recognized as a Mynderse Sports Hall of Famer, so congratulations, and you should be very proud of all of your accomplishments. I was a little surprised when my brother called me and asked me to speak for him tonight. We don't have the traditional brother relationship. Most brothers could stand up here and tell stories of things that happened as they grew up together through Mynderse Academy and all the sports they played. But quite frankly, I have zero recollection of my brother Dan living in my house. Dan was getting ready to graduate from Mynderse the day I was born. So I never saw him play football or lacrosse here. But the influence he had on me was probably more than he knows. The first thing my brother gave me was 3 younger brothers, which are really my nephews. I grew up with Ryan, Steven, and Jeff. I was always at the Boston Avenue house playing wiffle ball or football in the yard. I still look forward to the time we spent together, and I thank my brother for that and the relationship I have with my nephews. Secondly, Dan taught me how to be a great husband and father. Although he's a little brash and brazen at times, my brother is a great leader of his family. He's a family man first and foremost. He and Joanne raised 3 great kids. They are constantly on the road going to visit one of them or some of their 9 grandchildren. I hope my kids someday look forward to seeing me as much as I know my nephews and their grandkids look forward to seeing Dan and Joanne. But probably the biggest influence my brother has had on me is being a coach and a leader of young men. He showed me how he can be hard and demanding of kids, and more times than not, they will respond. Dan left Mynderse. He went to York to become an athletic director there. He shortly took over the football program, which was a perennial loser at the time, and he turned them into a perennial winner. He did this by hard work, never taking shortcuts, and being true to himself. Dan is a member of the Section 5 Football Hall of Fame for his coaching accomplishments, and he is my benchmark as far as my coaching is concerned, and for that I thank him. So it is my pleasure and honor to introduce to you my brother Dan, 2018 Mynderse Hall of Fame inductee.
Good evening. I'd like to start out tonight by thanking my brother Joe for being my presenter. Again, as Joe said, Joe was born the year I graduated from Mynderse. It's amazing after dealing with me for 50 years that he has so many nice things to say about me. I'd like to congratulate him on his excellent football season this year. They became league champs last Friday night when they beat I take a lot of pride in watching my brother coaching at Mynderse Academy. That was always one of the main things that was big in our family, football at Mynderse. I'd also like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for this prestigious honor. It is a great honor for me. Athletics has been a big part of my life for nearly 60 years, giving away my age. I'd like to congratulate all of tonight's inductees and all of the inductees that are from past years out in the audience. This is a great honor for me. Growing up in Seneca Falls, I have many fond memories of Mynderse Academy. Playing football was one of the great ones with Coach Davis. Coach Davis was a big supporter of myself. He sort of showed me the way I was doing some not so good things, and he straightened me out. But after I graduated, I went to Brockport and was lucky enough to come back and be a teacher at Mynderse Academy in 1973. Taught driver ed and physical education, and again, thanks to Mr. Don Paradise for having the faith in me and hiring me as a teacher. With my physical education degree, I always wanted to become a teacher and a coach. Football was always my main interest, but my first year teaching at Seneca Falls at Mynderse, I coached cross country. And one of my athletes is sitting out in the front row. Scott Smith was on our cross country team. And we didn't do too bad. We finished second in the sectionals my first year. That was the only year I coached cross country, though. While at Mynderse, there were many coaches that shaped my coaching philosophy. First of all, my best friend. Coach Henry. Coach taught me the family approach in coaching, and I'll always be grateful for that. Also, Coach Jack Daniels and Dave Geithner taught me the X's and O's. They got me really involved in football, and I thank them for that. And also Coach John Nicholson. Coach taught me how to lead effectively and how to be a role model for the athletes. I was privileged to teach and coach many outstanding individuals while at Mynderse. Two of them are also being honored tonight. Steve Avaduty and Kevin Cabot. Both of those were students when I was teaching here. I had the privilege of coaching 3 Hall of Famers in wrestling. Gary Bullis, who's out here tonight, Dom Carasolo, and Steve Siegfried, 2 other members of the Hall of Fame. Coaching wrestling was one of the greatest experiences I had while I was at Mynderse. In '83, I left Mynderse to become an athletic director and physical education teacher, and eventually a head football coach at York Central School. My wife said it was going to be a two-year commitment, but it ended up turning into a 25-year commitment. She didn't want to leave Seneca Falls. While coaching at York, I was able to coach all 3 of my sons, which was a great privilege for me and a highlight of my coaching career. As athletic director, I got to work with many individuals across Section 5. One of those individuals, again, a Hall of Famer, Rod Verkey. We have some memorable times together. I would like to thank all of my family and friends for being here tonight and supporting me over the 35 years of teaching and coaching. My parents for their support while growing up in Seneca Falls. They never missed a varsity contest that I participated in during high school. My dad passed away 2 years ago. He would actually come to most of our football practices. Sometimes we would have more people at a football practice than they get at some games around the area. Lastly, I would like to thank my 3 sons. Ryan, Stephen, and Jeff. You guys have made myself and your mother very proud. We have 3 great daughters-in-law and 9 beautiful grandchildren. Lastly, again, my wife, Joanne, of 47 years. This journey could not be possible without you. She probably knows more football than a lot of coaches. My family, they've always been my biggest supporter and many times my biggest critic. I truly couldn't have done any of this without them. And finally, again, thank you to the Hall of Fame committee for this honor and this great weekend. I'll always remember it. Thank you.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ken Cabot to introduce our next inductee.
Good evening. First, I would just like to congratulate, all the past and present nominees, inductees for this. It's a very great honor. And I would like to congratulate Joe, his coaching staff, and his players for having a great football league. That was awesome. We went to the last game. It was a very good game. A lot of people there. They stormed the field. I don't know when the last time they did it. Mynderse Academy stormed the field, though. That was a very good game. Growing up with my brother Kevin, who's a couple years older than me, whatever season it was, we played it. And we played 3 of them, football, baseball, and basketball. And next to our house was a vacant lot, which made a perfect football field. We would have a lot of friends come over and play football all the time. And we used to get 5 inches to 12 inches of snow. Me and Kevin would go play football one-on-one. Not a lot of scoring, believe me. There was not a lot of scoring. There was a lot of hitting. And at the end of the field, there was a shed, an old shed. And summertime came around, and the door stuck out about 2 inches from the shed, and that made a perfect strike zone. And talk about fast-pitch wiffle ball. That's all we did for hours upon hours and upon hours, double headers every weekend. And we pick a baseball team. So back then, I liked the Oakland Athletics, so if you were Reggie Jackson, you had to bat left-handed because he did. And we just played forever. And I think we did keep Ben Franklin, the 5 and dime store, in business for buying wiffle balls and electrical tape. Because once we stopped playing, I think they went out of business, I swear. I swear we did. And last, my father, God rest his soul, he put up a basket in a tree in front of our house without using a tape measure. This is true. It started off the basket being 10 foot 7 inches. And he did not take in effect that the tree was going to grow every 2 inches every year. So the time we got done playing, the basket was 11-7. And it took a lot to get the ball up. And going through that, I think that's what helped Kevin make that shot that was heard across the Finger Lakes, which it is in the program. I'm not going to get into that real quick, but that was one of my best memories in sports, in my 4 years of sports. And I wasn't even playing. I was on JVs. I was standing on the wall watching that shot go in. And that was the best memory I've had in sports. And I can see Mr. Novak. Yes, it was 4 years, not 5. Felt like 6. But that, and the lights shine a little bit brighter in Seneca Falls that night. That was a very, very great shot, very great moment. I try to think of one word to describe Kevin, his playing all 3 sports in Mynderse. And I came up with the word solid. Kevin was a very solid player, very smart player. He seldom made mistakes. He gave 125% games and practices. He made his teammates better. And he's a very smart player. He never shied away from any situation. And if you needed a basket, a steal, a base hit, a catch, an interception, a fumble, recovery, he's the one who's going to give it to you, and he did it most of the time. Kevin was a very solid player, all 3 sports, and I remember going down to his son's wedding, Matt, in Cincinnati, and we went downtown the day before. He showed me where the Fifth Third building was, gigantic building, and he was talking about how he went through that, and he says, I was always in the right place at the right time. And I thought, well, maybe. But tonight I know that he is in the right place at the right time. He definitely earned this, and he definitely deserves this. And before I introduce you to bring you up here, I just want to mention one more thing. I did win that bet, Kevin. Me and Kevin bet that I would not mention that my name is on the wall twice in the gym. He's only on once. So I did not mention that, so we'll square up when we get together. But ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Cabot, my brother.
If he wasn't going to mention it, I was. It's really delightful being back in town and seeing a lot of people. I'm sorry Suff had to leave early. It was fun seeing him. Suff had a bad memory of me. He remembered that first time he met me, he was calling balls and strikes, and I reminded him he never called a ball when I was up. They were always strikes. Let me first start by thanking the committee. It's a great honor, and I'm humbled to be included, so thank you very much. I want to acknowledge and thank Kenny. I was going to tell you about the fact that when I did call him, that is exactly the first thing he said. His name's on the wall twice. But thank you, Kenny. I love you very much. Speaking of brothers, I have 3 of my brother-in-laws here today. One of them is a fellow Hall of Famer in Gary. And Greg and Mike are here as well, so thank you for your support. Another thank you goes all the way back to my sophomore year at Mynderse. A month and a half ago, we celebrated our 39th wedding anniversary, but it's been 46 years of our being together. So, sweetie, whether it was class president or company president, you not only gave me permission to reach my dreams, but you're an active partner in all of our success. So, Patty, thank you for your undying love and faith. Now, as I reflected on what I wanted to say tonight, I got it down to about an hour and a half. And I know Dave Farrar would really appreciate that, as well as Tony. But I wanted to share a couple of quick reflections, hopefully. First of all, as you heard, I was always involved in team sports, basketball, baseball, football, no individual sports. So to me, the point is that I'm being honored tonight as a result of my team members and classmates who helped put me here. Without them, you wouldn't have heard of me. I want to share a story with you. It's one example in my life, but I hope it'll highlight to you how everything good that came to me came from what I learned here in Seneca Falls in Mynderse Academy. After Mynderse, as you read, I attended Johns Hopkins University, and I went out and made the basketball team. Now, unbeknownst to me at the time, we had a Baltimore Supreme Court judge and alumni who would pick out a freshman every year and mentor them. The experiences afforded were invaluable. You'd be invited to attend lunches and dinners with governors, senators, even cardinals. And one of the other things you received, if selected, was an 800 number where you could call and get tickets to any sporting event, play, concert, or entertainment event in the Baltimore, Washington area. Well, my freshman year, I was the fortunate one selected. And because of that, I was exposed to things that helped shape my life. An incredible opportunity for a kid from Seneca Falls. Now, you might wonder, how does a kid like me get chosen? And I will confess to you that I was curious about that myself. So one day I asked the judge, why me? And his answer really hit home to me. But before I share that with you, I want to talk about some of the coaches that made a profound impression on me. In many ways, I would tell you they changed my life. And while I could talk of many, 3 stand out: Nick Nettie, Don Paradise, and John Nicholson, all coincidentally Hall of Famers themselves. Now, the first time I met or really saw Nick Nettie, Mike Farrar and I were headed to St. Pat's Gym to take down the tables from bingo the night before. That was our job. When all of a sudden, from the locker room door came an upperclassman, sprinting and screaming at the top of his lungs. And right behind him was Coach Nettie, in full roar and pursuit. They dashed around the gym, and finally Nick dove across a table which collapsed under him, and the upperclassman escaped. Nick got up, looked at us, didn't say a thing, smiled, and walked away. That was Nick. Enthusiastic, passionate, playful. Nick Nettie was the first coach to believe in me. He saw a shy youth who was tall and thought he could teach me basketball, and he did. He preached teamwork, discipline, and above all, family. Nick taught me what confidence can do for you. He built me up and gave me the freedom I needed to learn and grow and even make mistakes. and how he only charged us a dime for missing a layup and a nickel for missing a free throw. So next is Coach Dom Paradise. Now, Coach Paradise was my varsity basketball coach for 1 year when I was a sophomore starting on a pretty good basketball team. We were going up to play the other undefeated team at the time, Newark. And we practiced well that week, we thought. We felt we were prepared, but unfortunately the first half was a disaster, and we looked awful. At halftime, we were in the locker room. A few of the less concerned were being a bit noisy and playful. If you remember some of the personalities there, you'd understand what I was talking about. So when Coach Paradise came in, he picked up one of those old metal folding chairs and flung it across the locker room. That chair simply didn't bounce off the lockers. It pierced the locker like an arrow and stuck. Believe me, I'll never forget it. It got our attention, quieted everybody down immediately. The lesson there was the desire and intensity to win, the preparation and determination you need to win. Everything about Coach Paradise focused on that. There was no foe he didn't believe we couldn't beat. He didn't back down from any challenge, and I took away a lot from that year as good building blocks for my future. And finally, there was Coach John Nicholson, truly one of my all-time favorites. And John, we had the pleasure of working under a thoughtful, calm, strategic leader. John almost never raised his voice, cussed at you, or got cross at you. John led by his wits. Every game was a game of chess, the right moves and counter moves. And I came to appreciate a thinking man's approach to the challenges before us. I would tell you so much so that the teams I played on under him adopted the same approach, independent thinkers, and never was that more apparent than that infamous Waterloo basketball game and what people called the shot heard round the league. For those of you not familiar with the scenario, you see the picture. We were playing Waterloo at the time. We were in first place. They were in second. It was a very tough game with only a few seconds left. Waterloo had just scored to go up by 1. Now, being the wizard of the Green Monster, Coach Nicholson had saved a timeout just for that occasion. As we got to the sideline, Coach drew up a beautiful play, one where he knew that as the team's leading scorer, that the opponents would be guarding me heavily in the final seconds. So he drew the play up to go to a teammate, a wonderful shooter, and he would use me as a decoy, strategic, thoughtful, intuitive, right? Wrong. When we broke the huddle, Gene Givney, my co-captain at the time, was taking the ball out. Gene looked at me, and all he did was this. No. And then he mouthed to me to get open. And the rest is history. Shot went in with 1 second left. As Coach Nicholson reminded me, though, the teammate the play was called up for was standing alone underneath the basket. I'm sure he would have made the shot too, Coach. I learned a lot from John, and I always appreciated his demeanor and the way he handled himself and the team under pressure. John is a class act, and I enjoyed playing for him. So let me tie these fine examples into my story. So as I mentioned, I asked the judge, why me? And he said, simple, because you touched the lines. He told me that he had snuck into one of our closed practices, and as we were doing sprints, the old Syracuse drills, where you started on the baseline, went to the foul line, went to back to the baseline, so forth, with no one watching and all of your teammates missing the lines, he said, you didn't. He said, as far as you knew, no one was watching, and yet you did the right thing. That's why I was selected, and it changed my life. That act of touching the lines opened up my world. However, I would tell you that the coaches I just mentioned, this town, Mynderse, my family, my teammates, my cousins, my classmates, had taught me the right thing to do long before I ever got to the university or to Baltimore. So for that and so much more, I want to close by saying thank you for this great honor. And I appreciate being inducted into this great school's Hall of Fame and all that you've given me. Thank you very much.
At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the presenter for our next inductee, Mr. Louis Van Cleef.
I was worried there wouldn't be enough light to see with these tiny glasses, but there is. Okay. Members of the committee, inductees, both past and present, fellow alumni, family, and friends. Our family is honored to be here with you tonight on behalf of our father and grandfather, Aidan Abe Van Cleef. Although we are here to honor the athletic achievements of our family members tonight, there most certainly is another part to their lives. My 5 sisters and I were raised in the 4th Ward of Seneca Falls in a home filled with love and laughter. Our parents were remarkable, to say the least. And although we all have our own memories, I will share some of mine with you. From a very young age, I realized that I was living in a home with a living legend. Countless times in my life, I have been asked, are you Abe's boy? And then followed up with, he was the best damn football player ever to come out of Mynderse. Whenever I would run into one of his friends, like Joe Anglem, Uli Pagano, Cecil Fitzgerald, or Bud Sewin, and on, they would share their fondest memories and adoration for our father. And by the way, the fact that he knew most everyone in town was a double-edged sword. It meant I couldn't get away with anything in Seneca Falls, or he'd find out. One thing my sisters and I fondly remember was that Dad loved to whistle. We were just talking about this week. I remember being a very young boy playing in our front yard on White Street, and in the distance, I could hear him whistling as he walked down Green Street on his way home from work at the Seneca Falls machine shop. My heart would fill, and I ran to the corner and waited for this man to walk down the street, larger than life. Abe was one of the funniest men I have ever known. His endless sense of humor filled our home with laughter, and it never seemed to end. Our holidays were filled with love, not only for our family, but often included one of his friends whom he would bring home for dinner because they had no family to share their holiday with. Dad loved the holiday season, and I can still remember him ringing the bell on Fall Street for the Salvation Army and playing Santa Claus downstairs in the working man's store. My sister Kim was afraid of him. More than a husband and a father, Abe was also a devoted grandfather. Each of his grandchildren could share stories of their own special time spent with Grampy. He would pick them up and take them for ice cream almost on a daily basis. Right, Chance? Yes. He took them fishing and camping, where he would tell them his campfire stories about Woofy. I never heard the story, but I heard it was scary. I could go on and on about our lives with him, but I just want to end this by jumping back to his athletic abilities. My nickname growing up was Hoppy, which some people still call me today. I can recall a conversation I was having with Dad in my adult years. I asked him who had been the most influential person in developing his football abilities. I was certain that he would say that it had been Coach Art Baker or someone like that. But his answer was stunning when he replied, my mother. My first thought was, your mother, our grandmother, Nan? How could this slight woman of 4 foot 10 inches ever have helped him with football? So I asked him, and his answer was, Hop, she told me to run. Just run. Wherever you go, run, and don't stop running until you get there. So that's what I did. I ran, and I didn't stop running until I got there. I now congratulate all of the Hall of Fame inductees. It should be noted that talent alone isn't enough to achieve greatness, but rather greatness is achieved only by those who have the focus and are dedicated enough to develop their talent to the best it can be and better than anyone else. Because there are truly no shortcuts to greatness. We honor you all. Well done. So in closing, Aidan, Abe, Van Cleef, would now be 105 years old if he was still living. My hope is that I am able to do something significant enough in my life so that it can be remembered and honored 105 years after my birth. Now, here to accept this award on behalf of our family is my grandson, Aidan's great-grandson, Aidan Van Cleef, who continues the tradition by toting the football on behalf of the South Seneca Tri-Town Titans football team.
Briefly, I'd like to say that I am honored to accept this award on behalf of my great-grandfather. Thank you.
Ted, there we go. The lights were off because we know the team needs to get some rest. But before we do introduce them, again, committee member extraordinaire, technology master, Mr. Novak has a video of this team and some of their accomplishments, their work ethic, and their ability to get along well and work as a team.
Opportunity to do something very special. See, I knew this because that season just didn't start in November that year. For us, this season started 10 years earlier when I had the opportunity to coach the majority of these guys in the youth leagues in Seneca Falls and on traveling teams. If I were to reflect back now, I think that season can be summed up in 2 words: desire and drive. The desire and the drive to win basketball games and to enjoy success. I hope you enjoy this video recap of that season.
For the record, goodness and shot. You didn't see it. I don't know how they lost any games, but Novak didn't show any of those pictures for Mr. Bell. I'm not going to call any names off at this point, but it certainly is my pleasure to introduce Coach Smith, the team. If they would please all come up here together, take a seat. Please be good.
Tony Ferrara was just anything you could ever ask for in a principal in terms of, supporting the program and the players. And on behalf of myself and the coaches and the players and managers, I also want to congratulate all of the other inductees tonight also. Thanks for the shout out, Coach Carraher, on running cross country my freshman year. What you forgot to say is I followed you to JV football the second year, and I played JV baseball for you that year also. And if I recall, I was your favorite on all three teams. What they've asked me to do is just kind of do a little rundown of what took place in the season, and I'll do that. I'll do it quickly. We started out the season, first of all, as I said in the video, the season started 10 years before, because we were as a group that had gone through a lot of biddy and youth hoop and stuff together. The year before, we brought up two sophomores and started 3 juniors and 2 sophomores the year before that. And this team was always kind of being compared to the 92 team. And when I reflect back on the two teams, I think that while the 1992 team accomplished more, in many respects, this team achieved more. Because the 1992 team was a team that had the best player in state. It was expected to make a run and go deep into the states in Glens Falls. But this team, I think realistically, our goal was to, nobody really ever remembered who won the league, but everybody always remembered who won the sectionals. And we thought we had a shot to win in the sectionals, and I think that primarily was our goal, and anything after that might be just a little bit of gravy. But we started out the season, won 2 games in the Waterloo Tip-Off tournament, and then we went and played away in Canandaigua, and we lost that game. And I think it's the only game I remember coaching and losing to a team that we were better than. It was very, very discouraging because I said this had been a process and it had been something that we'd been working for a long time. And to be 0-1 when we started the league was just a disaster. But then we rattled off 8 straight wins, and we were 9-1. And I don't really remember what the function of this was, but they set us up as one of the premier Class C schools in the league, and they put us in the War Memorial to go play against Pittsford Sutherland. And that year, Pittsford Sutherland, you might recall, they had Brian Blackwell, who went on to play at the University of Illinois and had a great career at Syracuse. And we just got hammered. And I think the final score was over 20 points. But it didn't seem so bad because it was almost like an exhibition type game. And I do remember Eric Tyler taking a baseline jumper that Blackwell swatted, and I don't think it's landed yet. After that game, we actually ran off 14 straight wins. We won our league. We were 15-1. We went on to win the sectionals, And then I think it was Keshequa that we beat in the state qualifier. So we knew that the following Saturday we were going to have to go to Buffalo to play in the state qualifier. And we went to scout the state's #1 ranked team, Buffalo Traditional, which is a private school in the city of Buffalo. And the game was being played at the University of Buffalo. Myself and Verk, and Tony Ferrara, and Bob Nearpass got in the car, drove in a little bit of a snowstorm all the way to the end of the thruway. And we got to the end of the thruway. I asked the ticket person where you pay at the thruway, can you tell me how to get to Buff State? And Verk goes, Smitty, I said, Verk, I just asked, I want to make sure I'm going to confirm the directions. And the lady in the ticket booth said, yeah, you just go down to that light right there and you make a left, and it's about 2 miles down the road. I said, okay, great. And Verk goes, Smitty, you idiot, you know you're playing at the University of Buffalo next week. That's where the game is tonight. It's at the University of Buffalo. So I said to the ticket taker, in case he's right, can you tell me how to get to the University of Buffalo? Ticket taker says, same light, just go down, make a right. It's about 7 miles down the road. I go to the light, I make a right, go 7 miles down the road. We're at the University of Buffalo. It's where we're going to play the winner of this game. So we split up, and Verk and Tony go sit on one side of the court, me and Near sit on the other side of the court. There was no reason at all to scout the other team. Buffalo Traditional comes out. They're 6'9", 6'7", 6'7", quick guards, ranked #1 in the state. And quite frankly, we got no prayer, okay? After the game is over, we go back and meet up in my car, and we kind of went around the horn saying, what'd you think? And I said, well, we've had a great season, and if we can keep it close, what's going to happen? We won the sectionals. Let's reflect back on what the real goals were. But, we're going to put our heart on the floor for 32 minutes and see what happens. Tony says, I got to tell you, Smith, you're going to have to pitch a perfect game. If you even want to be in this game in the fourth quarter, your kids are going to have to go out and pitch an absolutely perfect game. My mentor in basketball is Verk, and Verk was always very realistic about everything. So he says, when it's his turn to speak, he says, I'll tell you what you do, Smith. He goes, you got to leave at least 4 or 5 hours before the game, because driving a school bus all the way from Seneca Falls down the thruway is, a task, and you want the kids to be warmed up and be ready to go and play in the game. And he says, and if I were you, he goes, once you go through that toll booth, I'd get to that light, and I'd go left to Buff State. He says, because you ain't got a prayer. Well, I got to tell you, we went out, and we pitched a perfect game. We told the 3 keys that Near and I talked about when we got more serious about practice for a couple of days beforehand was, number 1, we were not going to tell these guys how good traditional was. That was not going to happen. But the second thing was we had to protect the basketball, and we had to shoot well from outside because there was not going to be any inside shooting. In 32 minutes of high school basketball that game, we committed 3 turnovers and shot 13 for 17 from the three-point line, pitched a perfect game, and beat traditional to go to Glens Falls. The magic continued in Glens Falls. When you saw that last second shot there, we had to play against Albertus Magnus. They had a kid named Antoine Dubert. This guy was a man-child. He was 6'4", 215 pounds. This kid could jump. We had nobody who could guard him, and we were going to be all kinds of trouble. So how are we going to handle him? We didn't need to, because he got 2 fouls in the first quarter, his third in the second quarter, and his fourth at the start of the third. We built a lead of about 13 points. They put Dubert back in the game with about 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. I think he had 17 points in the fourth quarter. They end up taking a lead on us. They're shooting free throws with 4 seconds left at the other end of the court. Miss a free throw. Our kids turn up baseball style, 94-foot pass. We got the kid semi-open under the basket, but one of the kids from Magnus reached up, tried to intercept the ball. It grazed his fingers and went out of bounds. We brought the ball in under our own basket, 1 second left. And Kevin, you might have hit the shot heard around the league, but baby, we hit the shot heard around the state, okay? Because that put us into the state finals. And we go into the state finals, and we're playing Bishop Ludden. And for about 3.5 quarters, the magic continued. Then there's about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and we went and had about a 4-minute stretch where we couldn't even get the ball across half court. Yeah. And we lost the game, but I'm going to tell y'all, lessons to be learned. It was an incredible experience. This is the 25th anniversary of that season, and I think it's really, really appropriate for this team to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. And with that, the captains on the team were Bobby Markle, Mark Novak, and Brian Noble, and I believe Brian's going to speak on behalf of the team.
What a night, huh? That was a pretty great video you put together, Mr. Novak, so thanks for that. It was an interesting team that we had put together. We were talking about it last night. The team is a mishmash as we went through the season. I don't know how many changes that we made of people in and out. So this was the team that ended the season, which is a family to us, right? It's a family. we had a saying as we came out of every basketball game. I don't know where it started. I know I'm pretty certain Bobby started it. But at the end, we're sitting in the back of the bus after every win, and it was, we came, we saw. Anybody remember? Say it. Come on. Jason, you know it. We conquered. We came, we saw, we conquered. All right, it's 25 years ago. Fair enough. So it's interesting. You don't remember that? Ah, you guys suck. We're here as a team. So this was the quote that I took out of one of the newspapers. With a quiet yet steely resolve, the Blue Devils simply take care of business, and that intelligent, workmanlike approach has placed Mynderse 2 victories from another state boys basketball championship. When the Mynderse Academy Blue Devils take the court, don't expect a lot of skin slapping or screaming, yelling, and general whooping it up for that matter. It's a fantastic team that we had. So we had some great stories. So I have the opportunity to present to you guys, and thank you for that. Congratulations to everybody, past and present, everybody that's in the Hall of Fame. This is quite the honor. Thank you to all of the parents. We all grew up together. We all played together. We all had parents that were always working every weekend together for rec centers, for everything we were doing in Saturday biddy ball. To all the coaches, to everyone that we had. I mean, Coach Smith was right. We had him from 8 until 18. Mr. Novak, Mr. Nicholson, Tony Petrocha and the rec program, everything that was given to us, Dennis Peisnack and Mr. Nicholson for coaching us outside of everything we ever did. The town, the support that we ever got, the fan support, the rowdy home games, the traveling fans, and everything that we really had was fantastically given to us by the town. I heard it from Mr. Cabot and everybody else. The town that gave us what we had as an opportunity. I think these guys all feel it as I do. So again, this is from all of us. Thank you very much for that. There were so many things that were great and allowed us to grow. So it was fantastic. I think we all became who we became from that starting point, from the town, from the opportunity of athletics. We had a unique opportunity. We went to Glens Falls with our women's team. I don't know how many schools have ever done that in the state, but to be able to go and play in the state semifinals, state finals, watching your women's team do the same thing with all of your classmates is pretty awesome. I put some pictures outside, and it's amazing to think about what we were able to do with all of that. It's funny. I talk about 8 to 18. I put a bunch of pictures. If this were going to be a slideshow, I had a bunch of things I wanted to show because it does show all of us sitting in our uniforms for when we're 10 and winning a youth group tournament, when we were 12 and winning a youth group tournament, and it was pretty fantastic. But the things I remember when we were going on those bus trips, the amount of candy that we ate, the containers of coins. We all had our unique different versions of fishing tackle boxes or whatever, so we could play poker in the back of the bus. I think Bobby still took a lot of my money, so that was nice. The summer camps, the opportunities to go to summer camps in town and the people that dedicated their time there. A bunch of us went to Ken Jones basketball camp. In that Buffalo traditional game, Ken Jones, who ran that camp, came and talked to us before the game. I thought that was pretty special and was a fantastic opportunity. The unique situation that Tony put us in for having people come in and we get to host. So we had people from Connecticut, people from Massachusetts, from Hempstead, Long Island, and those situations where we got to grow and learn with other kids our age and see different experiences was pretty fantastic. Selfishly, I'm going to say that I got to play against one of the Hempstead kids in college for twice a year. He played at Hartwick, so I got to do that. How amazing is that? So, basketball, it taught us a lot. It brought us a lot together, and it's unique in my life, and I think it is for all these guys as well. So thanks for the opportunity.
Coach, back up here, please. At this time, obviously, we'd like to recognize each and every individual on that team. I will call out their names, and Coach will present them with their plaque. And while Rod's getting all that stuff together, when we are finished, we would ask all the inductees and the presenters to still be here because Mr. Novak would like to get a total group picture first of the team and then all the other inductees. So please, we'd ask you to sit tight for a few minutes when we're done here. First of all, Mr. Bob Krebs. We will start with the freshmen on this team. First of all, Mr. Stephen Guy. Our next player, unfortunately, couldn't be here tonight, Michael Nigro. And because I respect my elders, I'll repeat what I was told to our next candidate who has the best father, Andrew Verkey. The sophomores on that team. First of all, Mr. Jason Herron. Mr. Dwayne Perozzi. Juniors, Mr. Larry Brown. Mr. Matt Dijon. Mr. Todd Harrison. Mr. Jason Hunt. The next member of the team was not allowed to be, or excuse me, was not able to be here, Mr. Jared Lawrence. Next, Zach Odell. Mr. Eric Tyler. Mr. Brian Van Duzen. Seniors and co-captains. First of all, Mr. Bob Markle. Brian Noble. And Mark Novak. As Coach Smith said, there were a couple of coaches who are not here tonight, but they deserve recognition. Mr. Scott Johnson, Mr. Kevin Laux, and Mr. Bob Nearpass. And the head coach of this team, Coach Scott Smith. We'd ask that you gentlemen stay up here for a little bit. Now we're not going to talk about you, but it'll take too much time for you to go down and come back. In closing, a couple of things. First, thank you to all of you who attended. Second, congratulations to all the inductees, their families, and all of those who are here to support them. To the presenters, you did a wonderful job. And in listening, I understand this program takes somewhere in the vicinity of a couple of hours, but trying to capture a few things, these words and these things are singled out to me and hopefully to you. First of all, character, family, pride, tradition, and work. I think everybody here tonight made mention of those factors as being the prime factors as to how these ladies and gentlemen achieved what they did, not only in the arena of athletics, but in the arena of life. So I thank you all for being here. I would like you all to please stand, because at this point, Mr. Verkey's leading us in the alma mater. He's going to sing a little of it, but he's going to ask everybody to please join in, because somehow the music got lost. I don't know how that happened. I don't even know where it is. You got it.
All right, let me explain this situation that we have. First of all, we have the best audiovisual technology person in the world. He's right here, and you saw his work on the videos and everything. It was great. But we have a recording of the alma mater, and he left it home. So let's clear that up right away. Secondly, let's clear this up. I am not going to lead you in the alma mater. I am going to direct you to the last page of the program, and I will proudly say the first word, and then you guys take it from there. But the reason we do this is you don't get to do the alma mater every day. It's something that we did when we were in high school. It's something we all remember, and it needs to be done at the end of this thing. So, on my cue, proudly stands, take it. That's the worst I've ever heard in my life. Go ahead. They don't have programs. Okay, that's good. Very good. Sit down. I guarantee you next year we will have a copy of the alma mater here, or Ted Novak will sing it a cappella. That concludes our proceedings tonight, and we thank you all for coming. Congratulations again to everybody. I've been doing this for a while, and I've very seldom seen as good presenting or accepting. Everything was very good. Thank you very much, and have a good evening. Remember, we have pictures. And don't forget, also, you're all invited to the country club.